So thanks for the opportunity to be here. This is my second webinar here at Palo Alto. Just by way of introduction, as Sana mentioned, I am a senior manager on the product management team as part of SaaS security and DLP. Within that remit, my responsibility is specifically the SaaS Inline product, which at a high level includes discovery, control, visibility, reporting. We'll talk about all those things actually today. And as a preview, we will start out by just giving you a lay of the land in terms of where SaaS Inline fits in the grand scheme of SaaS security and problems that our customers, yourselves, are looking to solve. And then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the solution itself, some of the specifics of how we offer discoverability, visibility, reporting, and control. And we'll also delve into specific features that are part of the offering, those that we've been working on more recently, namely things like auto tagging and tenant controls. So that's a bit of a preview. We will leave time for questions as well, as Sana noted. So at a super high level, I think as all of you know, usage of SaaS applications continues to grow. As I was taking a look at this slide, I have to admit that perhaps the sprawl is much, much larger than even what we report here. And the reason for that is outside of sanctioned corporate applications that organizations purchase, which may be in the order of 100 plus, there are so many plugins and private applications that now exist today in any organization, some of them homegrown, that also really dictate usage. And ultimately, what we think about, and many of the conversations that we have with CISOs and CASB administrators, has to do with the fact that they're looking to just be productive. They want to use these applications. They want to solve problems. They want to, within the fields of finance or healthcare, be able to push business. But they also want to be safe. They want to ensure that they're not creating more opportunities for targets, more opportunities for exploitation, ensuring that their sensitive data that matters most to them, be it financial, health records, etc., does not get exposed. And so ultimately, more and more exposure, the potential for more exposure, leads to the challenges that you see here and the potential for attacks. And as we go from shadow IT to interconnected SaaS, to plugins, to marketplaces, this continues to just evolve more and more, which makes it complex, but it's also something that we can certainly put our arms around. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. So our Palo Alto solution is a leading solution for a variety of different reasons. Today, we'll touch mostly on the visibility and control piece, but I did want to offer to the audience here the fact that there's a comprehensive solution. So as part of our CASB X offering, which is an all-inclusive bundle, not only do you get the visibility and control, which we'll be diving into today, and I won't spend too much time here on it because we have some successive content around our catalog, around control, around app discovery, but you also have SaaS security posture management, where we support a variety of applications to be able to help you understand misconfigurations, things like timeouts and multi-factor authentication. If you think about any of the applications that you or your organization uses, there are hundreds of configurations that come out of the box with particular applications. It's nearly impossible for any sort of admin to put their arms around that, to be able to stay up to date with it. And so that is where we can help by onboarding those apps, by giving you that visibility and control over all these third-party applications and their integrations, keep you up to date, and help to expose any sort of misconfigurations and what risk that may lead to. With that said, when you get into data security specifically, be it out-of-band or inline, you're looking at the best-in-class data classifiers, exact data matching, and OCR, and machine learning, and natural language processing. So to be able to decipher and make sense of PII, credit card information, personal health records, what sort of exposure exists in Google Drive to Box to Dropbox to documents that are being shared in Slack channels to cloud storage applications. Not trivial, but this is where inline DLP for SaaS, email DLP, endpoint DLP, all of these things come into play. And with all that, our best-in-class security offered by Palo Alto, around malware protection, phishing attacks, all these things are all embedded as part of our projects, or as part of our products, I should say. That in itself can provide a lot of solace in terms of the integrations that exist, but we continue to innovate. We won't touch on it much today, but user behavior analytics is a big piece of actually our team where we are working on solutions out of the box to ensure that suspicious activity has some bounds around it so you can not only detect that, but also remediate it. So that's a bit of a preview into the entire solution. Certainly you can read more about it. I do have a slide at the end that will touch on how you can continue to learn more, and I'll be certain to point out some additional things in our documentation and also how to engage with the field to go deeper into all these respective areas. I would be remiss if I did not touch on the topic of the hour, which is also AI adoption. So Palo Alto continues to do a lot of work here, as I'm sure you've read about. We won't spend too much time on it today, but I do have some examples for what it's worth around our particular product in Saas Inline and how we can help you with the visibility piece and the control piece. We won't touch much on data inspection or code protection, but those solutions also exist. So when you're looking at, once again, putting your arms around all of the artificial intelligence applications that exist, as a preview, we have over 1,200 of them as part of our AI category in our product today. How do you get exposure to those? How do you control them? What rules can you set around them? That's what we touch on here. From a architectural and integration standpoint, I want to touch on this as well. So when you look at the challenge of understanding your environment, your organization, where do employees exist? Most likely, very distributed. Office locations, hybrid, at home, managed devices, unmanaged devices. Typically, a lot of Zero Trust talks about least privilege access, talks about continuous verification and security inspection. By all means, we offer those solutions. But when you look at SaaS security and specifically looking at either having a solution for inline detection and control to out-of-band API protection to data security, this is where we come in. So our SaaS security and data loss prevention solutions, once again, CASBX is the bundle that offers all of those things you see here on the right-hand side, along with security posture management. That's where that comes into play. So it's not just about internet access, but it's about understanding all of the applications that exist in your environment, how to make sense of them, how to perhaps tag them into sanctioned, unsanctioned, tolerated buckets, discover specific corporate versus third-party usage of those applications, misconfigurations, and then go deeper into controlling them from a standpoint of remediation or quarantining, or simply just granular controls of blocking uploads and downloads for specific groups of users. How does that all work? You may be asking yourself. Well, from an architectural standpoint, if you're using our Palo Alto products, either Prisma Access or Next Generation Firewall, most likely you have logs that are being written into something called Cortex Data Lake, CDL. With that, you have an entryway into our SaaS security product, which gives you all these visibility and control pieces that I've been touching on. So once again, to repeat, as long as you're using our products and those logs are being directed towards Cortex Data Lake, you have what you need as a prerequisite. Beyond that, you have the opportunity as a customer to not only integrate with both the cloud side and the on-prem firewall side from a enforcement standpoint, but you also have the opportunity to set up a variety of connectors on the API and SSPM side. I think last I checked, for our out-of-band API solution, where we scan and monitor your environment that you've given us credentials for, we have over 27 applications. For SaaS security posture management, we support over 90 applications. Most likely, they're the applications that you are using, the popular ones. And so once that connection is made, a lot of things can happen. In fact, as a preview, we'll touch on a feature that has been worked on around auto tagging that gives you exposure to which of those applications you've actually onboarded, aside from making life easier in terms of predicting what your actual usage is. So we'll touch on that a little bit later with auto tagging. But now let's go ahead and deep dive into the visibility and control piece of SaaS usage. So this specifically on the right-hand side is our SaaS Inline offering. As you see, the SaaS Security Console and discovered applications, out of the box with the connection to CDL, you would have this continuous app discovery and classification. What does that get you? Well, we discover over 66,000 SaaS applications, and all of those come with basic information about those applications, as well as over 55 specific attributes. We'll deep dive into that in a few minutes here. We continue to invest in that. When I started about a year and a half ago at Palo Alto, I think we were at about 50,000 SaaS applications. That's a bit milestone in itself, but we have now surpassed all of our competition with over 66,000 SaaS applications. And that continues to evolve, as you know. How we do that is through a lot of work around research. We actually have a dedicated team that lives and breathes this information, but there's also a lot of crowdsourcing and machine learning intelligence, as you can imagine, to scrape for this information, to ensure that it's accurate, and to continue to refresh it. What does that set us up for? Well, it sets us up for not only the discovery piece, the risk evaluation, and whatever that means to you in terms of tolerance, and then ultimately control. One-click block access to setting up specific granular policies with respect to the applications that you may want to control. And ultimately, that control can then also delve into protective sensitive data, applying data profiles from our data loss prevention solution as part of those control vectors. So let's dive a little bit deeper. Once again, within the console, we break down our risk into some high-level categories: security and privacy, identity and access management, and finally, compliance categories. We have over 40 application categories themselves. I alluded to the fact that artificial intelligence was one of them, where if you deep dive into our application dictionary, you can have access to and see over 1,200 AI apps, and that continues to grow, as you know. But you can also take a look at the risk. You can slice and dice information based on categories of application and usage, as you can see here in the dashboard. And then ultimately, as you try to make sense of your environment, you can custom tag the applications. Here's an example of an application. I believe this one is Microsoft 365 based on the screenshot. And you can see the granular attributes that exist here around these high-level categories of security and privacy, identity and access management, and compliance. At the surface, this may seem fairly trivial, but the fact is that it's actually pretty extensive. And what I mean by that is that if I go ahead and click on, and this is a public documentation link, by the way, you can see that those 55 plus attributes are described in detail here. So not only do you see how we define them, but you also see the detailed descriptions of those attributes. Compliance, in case you're not familiar with some of them, you can see what those are about and perhaps even where we source them from. And as you get deeper into, bear with me here, the security and privacy attributes, you see that we go extensive into data ownership, into data retention. What that means is whatever application that was discovered in your environment, our research team is looking to understand whether an application like Box or Dropbox, for example, what is their policy around data retention? How long do they hold on to that specific data? Or what is their disaster recovery strategy? Encryption in transit, at rest, etc. So all of these factors, you may be wondering, why do they matter? Well, A, it may matter to an organization like yours, which is why we look to expose it. B, this actually translates into our risk score. So going back to our presentation here, if, let me take an example actually. Let's say that you want to safely enable ChatGPT, as I've taken a screenshot of here. This is an application, of course, that exists within the artificial intelligence category, and you can filter for that. You can discover it if it exists in your environment because your users are using it. So you see the number of users using it, the upload, download information, and basic information, and of course, all the attributes that I touched on. But let's say that you think that the risk of ChatGPT or any said application is beyond what we classify. You may notice here that it's been given a risk score of 4. By the way, that is in a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being riskiest. You as an admin or user can go in there and configure the global risk score. And if you go ahead and do that, you actually get all of the 55 attributes that I just spoke to at your fingertips. Those all add up to 100, as you can see here, but you can change the rating. So for example, if SOC 2 happens to be a priority at your company and you care about that with respect to applications that are discovered or that you want to control, you can change the weighting on SOC 2 from a 5, as you can see here, to a 15. That will not only change the risk score accordingly for that application, but because this is configuring our global risk score, it modifies the entire risk for all the applications that have been discovered by our product. That is a very powerful feature and one that, having worked on previous CASB products in my career, is not easy to pull off. So that's a big portion of where Saas Inline comes in. While I'm here, I also want to mention that if you don't want to change the weighting of the risk scores, as we've exposed here, you could individually change the risk of an application that was discovered. So going back to the ChatGPT example, maybe I'll just go back a step here. Even though I don't have it in front of me as a UI, there's a dropdown here next to risk score 4 that allows me to modify this and say, well, ChatGPT is not something we sanction in our environment. I want to go ahead and evolve that from a risk score of 4, which is effectively medium, as you can see here by the yellow designation, to perhaps a 7 or an 8, which would make it a color red and obviously higher risk. That action would specifically stick or retain for the particular application that you change the risk score for, and only for that. So that's also your prerogative as an admin to be able to do that. All right, I'll move on to some other aspects of the Saas Inline offering. This is a bit of a tease because we're going to go into this a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But as you discover applications, more and more customers have come to us and said, well, Rohit, it's great that you're discovering all these applications, but I know for a fact that there's some corporate usage and perhaps there's some personal usage of these applications. What do we mean by that? Well, take an example of Dropbox or Gmail. Some of us may use Gmail as a workspace application in our organizations, but we may also be using Gmail personally to communicate with our friends and family. At times, I know I've done it, you can have a browser such as Chrome with 2 sessions running concurrently. One tab, your personal email, a second, your corporate email. You can multiply that out by other applications like Google Drive, which obviously is integrated into the workspace environment, and you could be sharing documents in a personal tenant versus a corporate tenant. How do you discover all those things? How do you put your arms around it and bounds to it. That is called tenant level visibility. And as you can see here, for applications like GitHub or Box in the screenshot that you see in front of you in our application, we can discover those tenants. We can allow you to go in there and then one-click manage them from a standpoint of tagging. Is it a corporate tenant? Is it a personal tenant? Is it a partner tenant? A very real example that often comes to us is that we have an organization such as marketing or legal that may be working legitimately with an outside organization. Take an accounting firm like PwC, KPMG. Perhaps they use a different storage provider, a cloud storage provider, and that's not one that's sanctioned in the environment. That may be a legitimate reason to use something like Box, and perhaps we want to authorize that for the legal team or the marketing team, but perhaps not for others. Maybe we're going to go into some detail and allow the marketing team to just upload content to Box, which happens to be a partner tenant, but not download from there. As you can see, there are layers to all of this, but ultimately it depends on your organization's risk tolerance and what controls you want to put around it. So we'll dive a little bit more into that, even though I gave you a bit of a preview in a few minutes. And we've been touching on this topic, policy and control. So with Saas Inline, within the same console, not only can you shift from the visibility and reporting pieces, but you can also delve into control. We have out-of-the-box policies, which are automated, as you can see, block uploads, prevent shares, personal access, download. But we go deeper in exposing granular controls. So if the application allows you to control upload, download, share, etc., we'll expose that. We'll actually expose that in the UI itself when you discover the application, but then we'll give you the opportunity to define your policy and specifically the granular controls that you care about. With that, you can also apply DLP rules, as I touched on earlier. And so all these things kind of come together as part of the policy and control piece. All right, a bit of a side deviation, but this kind of touches on a topic that we're not going to delve too much into today, is reporting. One of the great tools that we have that's not only built into the product, but also available to you as a prospect customer, in case you're not using Palo Alto products today, is a SaaS security report. As you can see on the right-hand side with the screenshot, this is effectively an overview of your organization's risk. What are the applications being used? Who's using them? How does that risk distribute, etc. So you get a comprehensive multi-page report, and that can help you effectively understand your security posture. This is oftentimes the beginning of the journey for many organizations. And so to be able to just preview what we know, what we deem as high, low, medium risk, who's using what applications are being used, it's often very revealing and can start your journey into perhaps moving into the product itself and having a live dashboard that you can then click through. It comes with a few prerequisites, I should say, prerequisites. So depending on whether you're using a Prisma Access or our firewall solution, you can see that effectively having accounts set up and having data written into CDL is something that is required. But I would encourage you to take a look at that, talk to your local rep or SE, and they can engage with you on that. They have means to reach out to us to generate that report even before you have access to the product itself. I also mentioned that because once you do have access to a product, you can actually generate this report as much as you'd like. It exists within the reports console. It's not something I touched on here, but it is there and available to you. And we're making some enhancements so you can even schedule that report and ultimately even customize that report over time. One of the newest areas that we added to the report, in fact, just weeks ago, in fact, I think it was last week, was top 30 AI applications. So if we discover artificial intelligence applications in your environment, we will also expose them as part of your report. And you can see a screenshot of that here in terms of the potential risk around those applications, its usage, and number of users. So that's baked into the report. From here on, it's, I think the last I checked, maybe a 12, 13-page report. All right, with that, I'm just going to double check here. My colleague Priyanka was joining. Priyanka, are you there?
Yes, Rohit, I'm on the call.
Wonderful. I'll let you take it over for this particular feature that you built.
Thank you, Rohit. Okay, let me share the screen.
I'll go ahead and do it. It's fine.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Priyanka Neelakrishnan. Enterprise SaaS explosion is real. And today I'm happy to introduce you to auto tagging recommendation, which is going to help you in simplifying the management of these enterprise applications that is getting bombarded into your organization. I've had customers come to me saying, "Hey, Priyanka, I understand that you guys have Saas Inline, which is helping me with application management, but I am a CASB admin. How do I know what are the enterprise applications that my organization is using? Because I am a CASB admin in this corner, but there are different departments in my organization, each introducing their own SaaS application for their management and productivity." So then we were thinking, given Palo Alto Networks, is there a way with which we can help these customers to simplify their enterprise SaaS application management? Then we thought, okay, having all the different security solutions here at Palo Alto Networks, I think we should be uniquely positioned to help solve this problem for our customers. So that's when we discovered that with our cloud identity engine, which is connecting with your identity providers, we will be able to discover all the enterprise applications that is being registered and utilized in your organization without the CASB admin having to go and figure out what are the applications that is getting introduced today and what is the application that was introduced yesterday. So we are taking out this pain point of you going and manually doing the research, which is time consuming and, of course, research intensive. So we have auto tagging recommendations for you, which is now inculcated into our product, which takes the help of our cloud identity engine, through which we discover the enterprise applications in your organization, and we provide those recommendations in our Saas Inline console, which is the Strata Cloud Manager, the unified Strata Cloud Manager console, wherein we will provide in as a recommendation, hey, customer, these are the applications, enterprise applications that we have discovered in your organization. And would you like to tag them as sanctioned? So you don't have to go and manually discover those by yourself. Instead, we discover it. We take the pain point of you going and manually researching, and we give it to you. Hey, customer, these are the ones that we believe is your enterprise applications. And all you can do is you can just directly hit on those applications and either tag them as sanctioned or ignore the recommendation for whatever reason, or retag them to your choice. So end of the day, the final choice is with the CASB admin. But all we are doing is we are trying to make your job simple by giving them to you. So it's a one-click recommendation. So all you got to do is just look at these applications, hit select, and tag as sanction. We do have the blog written on the same if you would like to know more around the administrator's task, like step by step. So here is the link to the blog. If you can hit on the blog. So this gives you the details around how it is being used, what are the key benefits of the solution, seamless tagging, enhanced visibility, effective policy controls. Not only that, the prerequisites and how you have to deal with it is also detailedly explained in this blog for your reference, right? Now let's get to the demo. The demo of this industry's first SaaS application auto tagging recommendation system, which is natively inculcated into our Prisma SASE, the Strata Cloud Manager, which is making our platformization story, right? So here on this console, you see this is the Strata Cloud Manager console. Rohit, can you please make sure we are going a little bit slower? Yeah, from the starting, please. Yeah. So this is the Strata Cloud Manager console, wherein in this tenant, you see Cloud Identity Engine and SaaS Security. Now, if you get to the configuration and go into the SaaS Security console, because you already have Cloud Identity Engine, which has discovered the enterprise applications in your organization without the CASB admin going to go and do the research. Now, when you get to the SaaS Security console, in Applications tab, we provide you this recommendation. Hey, customer, we have discovered 4 applications and our Cloud Identity Engine has determined them to be your enterprise apps. Would you like to tag them? You can either review the tags there, or there is this tag recommendation in the tabular column beneath, wherein you can go and hit and get to the same page. So let's see what happens when you hit that tag recommendation. So when you go in to review the tags, here, the applications that we discovered are listed. So you can go ahead and hit accept tag as sanctioned. So, or ignore or retag them as tolerated. For whatever reason, your organization wanted to have, do not want Box to be utilized, but rather Google Drive for some reason, which is why we have this retag option, wherein you can go and hit them as tolerated rather than sanctioning them, right? So let's see what happens now. So you accept the tag as sanctioned. The applications have been tagged. So once you put the applications in the sanctioned bucket, we help you see what has happened, right? So can we go to the anytime? Yeah. So yes. So here you can see that the application has been put in the sanctioned bucket. Now we do not stop there. We ensure that all the 360 security that you can add on to protect this application is available to you. And that's why we introduced this onboarding status column here, which states that, hey, you have now tagged this application, for example, Box in the sanctioned as a sanctioned application. Now we have data security to protect the data that is inside the Box application, and posture security, which is to protect the settings and configurations of the Box application itself so that the data does not leave. And you're making sure the loopholes of that application is properly hardened so as to get your 360-degree protection from our CASB industry-leading NG CASB solution, which is part of our Prisma SASE, right? So we provide you the status of Box from data security and posture security perspective, which will let you know whether you have onboarded that application for these 2 additional security components. If you have not onboarded, the button would not show the green, then you will know that, okay, hey, I would like to go and onboard this application for data security or posture security. So that's the beauty of having this onboarding status here, which is simplifying and ensuring that you get that 360 protection from CASB. So you can view the current tag. If you see, the current tag is all sanctioned. And onboarding status is also available in here. So feel free to take us for the test drive and let us know how this has helped, and is there any other feedback that you would like for us to have? Okay. Thank you. Over to you, Rod.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Appreciate that. So that is a feature that Priyanka and the team built very recently. In fact, just shipped in January, and it's great. It's seeing some great adoption. But as Priyanka touched on, it's meant to be an accelerator to your journey, predictive in the sense that we can share some of the intel that we already have to make the challenge of, once again, understanding your shadow IT that much easier. And that is a common problem that customers come to us to solve. All right, I'm going to transition into a few other things I want to touch on. I had talked about tenant controls previously, but I want to deep dive a little bit more into that in the next few minutes. So the tenant discovery I already explained, but in case it didn't make sense, perhaps this may. we show you a column in the UI that gives you visibility over that traffic at the tenant level. So if we discover it for certain applications, we will surface that. We allow you then to go forward and click into those tenants and see what they look like, see what the actual tenant is that was discovered, and to be able to tag that and then ultimately control it. And so my next set of slides will go through what that looks like from a user experience standpoint. We support over or about 20 applications today that can be discovered, and more continue to be added iteratively as part of our offering. And there's a link to our tech docs that talks about that as well. So the actual experience itself, without going through, in this case, a recorded demo, is that you have this column that appears as tenants are detected in your environment, and may or may not be true, but it certainly could be the case because this is a problem that our customers come to us to solve. Once they are discovered, as you can see here for Microsoft SharePoint, there are a couple tenants that were discovered. We then allow you to go ahead and tag them as you wish. Take a label that we already have or custom tag it if that makes sense for you. Then you can delve into what we call tenant level policies as opposed to the application level policies. And here you have the ability to select that application tenant. In this case, we've selected Slack, and we've identified two specific tenants that we want to block actions around. And so that's also a key point here is that we're blocking the create function for a specific tenant. So you can't create, in this case, a Slack tenant for both of these specific tenants that were discovered. So that's the level of granularity that you have available to you as part of tenant controls. And you can do that applied to specific users and groups as well. Additionally, I wanted to touch on the fact that oftentimes customers come to us and say, well, it's one thing to explicitly deny or block, but we may want to allow specific tenants and block all the rest. Well, that is something we've also heard the feedback around, and we are looking to introduce that as well. In fact, most recently, we did introduce the allow function for Box. So in this specific example, as you can see here, you can allow any activity for specific tenants. So in this case, we're allowing access to specific Box tenants, be it corporate and channel partner, but we're blocking access to all other Box tenants. That requires two different rules to be set up, one over the other, mind you, but that is also functionality that can be achieved with the product. So once again, a lot of layers to the control piece, and specifically as it relates to tenants, because that can often be a very complex subject beyond just blocking, say, applications and granular controls. All right, in the few minutes that are remaining, I just want to wrap up by also stating that within our product, we also allow you to provide feedback. I mention this because oftentimes areas of the product, such as the discovery of applications, specific risk scores, or even the categorization of applications, is very subjective. Everyone's risk tolerance is different. Everyone's interpretation of what an attribute may or may not be, or what category it fits into, is somewhat subjective, but also arguably ambiguous at times, especially as technology evolves, as you well know. So we allow you the opportunity to provide us feedback. This feedback goes directly to our research team. And I can tell you without a doubt, because we've had this feature live now for upwards of about 7-8 months, that the research team takes this to heart. They make changes, they change risk scores, they add applications that we may not have discovered in different parts of the world. Oftentimes our loudest customers are the ones that we hear from in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world, where there's applications that may not be familiar to us. And so we add those applications to our catalog, as well as the corresponding risk scores and the work that needs to be done to fill out the attributes for those specific applications. So allow me to just show you very briefly here what that looks like. In the dashboard itself, if you go to applications, you'll see that eye bubble here, just to make sure that everyone saw that. Within the console, it's omnipresent at the bottom here. There's this information bubble. You can go ahead and click that, and it brings across a sidecar that allows you to define specific feedback, be it risk score, adjustment, outdate attributes, etc. It very well could be that you discover that particular application you're using has a certification or compliance standard that you're familiar with and we don't have right. That could be. And so that's the reason that we allow you to provide that feedback to us. So that's a little bit of a in-console app feedback offering that we have in the product. We continue to do more of that, as you can probably imagine, with other aspects of our product, namely machine learning, detections. There can be the potential for, of course, false positives to things that may not seem right. So feedback loops is very important to us as a product team, engineering team, to be able to learn from our customers and iterate on that. All right, so with that, I believe that brings us to wrapping up this section of the webinar. I did want to note before we wrap up here and take any questions that you may have, that you can continue to stay updated and learn more. So we have our release notes that we publish every month. You can go and take a look at those for January. In fact, if I delve into January, you will see that some of our tenant level policy improvements to our auto tacking recommendations that Priyanka just spoke to, as well as new attributes that we're adding, are all documented clearly for anyone to read. If you're interested in seeing what the team has been up to in the last year or beyond, you can also see that on a monthly basis in our published release notes. So I encourage you to take a look at that in case you're looking for something specific or just curious to know our cadence and our velocity in terms of how often we are shipping. I can tell you it's all the time. And so we don't have to wait for the end of a month to ship something. If there's a change that needs to be made or new enhancement, our teams will continue to iterate and do that. Finally, there's a lot of great information in the SaaS Security Admin Guide. If I go and click on that as a preview, that goes into discovery, control, visibility and reporting, risk assessment, and categorization, as you can see here. All areas that we kind of delved into today, in some cases deeper than others, but some broad strokes around what the Saas Inline offering looks like. And if you want to learn more about that, you can certainly go into our admin guide that you see here and not only get started in terms of how to configure that if you have access to our product, but also just how we do it. There's different sections here that go into a lot more detail than I went into or had the time to do here across our Prisma Access and NGFW solutions to integrating with Azure to all sorts of other things that are possible with the product.